It's Lisa from Been There, Got Out. And today I really hope we can get him on. My guest is Mike, the parenting coach. We met about, there he is, maybe a few weeks ago and had an amazing conversation because he has so much experience, especially with teenagers, and teenagers tend to be very, very rough. I know I've had teenagers. My kids are in their 20s now, but I taught high school and especially,
I think it worked.
yeah. And so I'm just saying about teenager, you've got a lot of experience with kids, but especially teenagers. And our community is dealing with crazy divorce, separations, custody battles, co-parenting hell. And so we need to figure out a way to make a peaceful home. And
Yeah.
you can help with that. So before we even get into that, before you officially introduce yourself, Mike, how does home life even affect teenagers?
Oh man. Gosh, we could talk a long time on that. The
I know.
biggest thing is that the teenage years, think of it like walking a tightrope from childhood to adulthood. And that's scary enough as it is if you've ever tried to walk on a tightrope. But there's all kinds of uncertainty. And so, if you've got one kind of pole in the ground in childhood and you got one pole in the ground in adulthood, if those are firm and stable because you have a home where there's peace, and that doesn't necessarily mean that both. I mean, yeah, we'd love for our kids to all experience both parents in the home, but sometimes it doesn't work out. But to have a collaborative relationship between um, parents will at least make those poles pretty sturdy, so that line's not moving more than it needs to.
Yeah.
Some of that
And we
line
don't have that.
moving,
We don't have that.
yeah,
This
yeah.
community
Yeah.
doesn't have
So just imagine, like I said, it's tough enough to walk on a tightrope by itself. And if those poles were sturdy, it creates balance, it creates agility, it creates all kinds of stuff, and the kid can focus in the right direction. But when you don't have those sturdy poles and they're wobbly and they're shaking, now that kid is living in fear and terror of what's going to happen. They can't even get their own balance when their minds are already, cognitively are shifting and changing and developing. And so that's one part. The other part that's really hard that I talk to my clients and parents all the time about is we have to remember our kids have to code switch, and that can be really unfair for them because dad is in one mindset, mom
that.
is in a different mindset. Dad runs home a certain way, mom runs home a certain way. Food is in the fridge, food's not in the fridge. We make dinners together, we don't make dinners. I don't have any chores, and I can be on my phone. I can have it in my room. I got an Xbox and a TV at dad's, but mom has stronger boundaries because and I don't mean to differentiate necessarily mom or
Mhm.
dad, but one parent has different boundaries and concerns, and the other is working at whatever it is. And so this kid has to figure out how to operate. And then there's a culture shock and a culture shift because culture just means how we do things around here. So now you have a kid who
Mhm.
lives in two different cultures, and maybe they switch on the weekend, maybe they switch every 3 days, maybe they switch for spring break. And a lot of times it is really hard for a teen to come in. And as parents, we just expect them to be this kid that we want to receive and we have them back, not
Mhm.
realizing, man, they just lived for 3 or 4 days or a week in a different culture, and there's an
Yeah.
adjustment period. So, you know, one of the easiest ways to create peace at home, if you have shared custody, is to have a receiving and ascending routine or ritual where they just give them some time to readjust and be, welcoming, hospitable, open. Just get they just came from somewhere else, and now they're getting resettled. It's almost like when you go on vacation, it takes 2 days at least to unwind, to turn everything off, to just settle in, and then it takes like you got to have a vacation from your vacation sometimes. By the time I get home,
I
I
know.
I need
I
like
know.
a day or two to just get back to work mindset. Your kids go through that every week,
Yeah.
if not,
Yeah.
more.
That's so
So.
important. Did you call that code switching?
Yeah, code switching, because we use that term in a lot of different ways, but it's the idea that they have to switch how they operate.
Mm-hmm.
So and that it's almost like a values conversation. There's one way to do thing at dad's house. There's another way to do things at mom's house. Code, or like code, like computer code, if you will.
Yeah.
It's like a set of values that create behaviors. And so when a kid is If they try to operate at moms like they do at dads, it creates conflict. And if they try to
Mm-hmm.
operate at dads like they do at moms, it creates conflict. And so that kid on their own has to figure out, when I leave dads and I want to come to moms, or whatever the agreement is, and they don't even consciously know how to do this until we teach them. And that's a part of
Mm-hmm.
having these sending and receiving routines. Uh, is that it's exhausting to code switch. We do it as adults too. Anytime you
Mm-hmm.
enter a new environment, more often than not, it's when you enter a new cultural paradigm or a new cultural experience. You have to you have to adapt uh,
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
environment. And you have to remember, what are the rules here? How do we talk to each other here? Um, so we behave here, and then add on top of that all the code switching. So it's mom, dad's house, it's a sports team, it's a club sports team, it's every classroom they go to, 7 classes a day. Every teacher has a different set of rules. Some teachers are really laid back and invite open conversation, and some teachers are like, you have to raise your hand, and some teachers will let you go to the bathroom, and some teachers won't. And so kids have to
Mm-hmm.
remember, and then take their social circles. This group is this way, this group is this way, this group is this way. It's just boom, 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 boom all day long. And then as mom and dad, you get a pretty exhausted kid that's running on low battery.
Oh,
But yeah,
so helpful. This is really, really helpful. Thank you for that. Now,
yeah.
can you officially introduce yourself, Mike?
Oh
Tell
yeah,
people who you are and what you
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, my name's Mike Barsamian. I get to be on Instagram as Mike the Parent Coach, and for 20 years I've been working with teenagers in a lot of different contexts. As a youth pastor for a long time, I've been a counselor, which I like to differentiate. That's different than being a therapist or a psychologist. So a pastoral counselor, um, teacher, coach, and really the last 5 years has been pursuing the professional coaching world and using all my education experience to create an opportunity for parents to become who they want to become, because it's so difficult just to try to do it on your own without accountability, without support, without empathy and understanding. And
Mhm.
so my mission is to help families become healthy, whole, and connected, and help parents really live into their authority, live into their identity, live into their confidence, and grow that so they can one, support their kids. And I think the most heartbreaking thing, you work with kids for 20 years. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. Um, and I talk to a lot of my clients that will call now, especially, well, not especially, but parents who are divorced. As we get into the transformational work of them growing back into their superpowers,
Mhm.
if you will, or just strong identity, we realize, man, they have a really unhealthy relationship with their own parents. And as we
Mhm.
trace that back, it goes to when they were teenagers and felt misunderstood. And then we go a little bit further and say, well, let's talk about what your parents were going through. And their parents were going through really difficult things. So they couldn't show. So we just want to stop that pattern and do things differently. And it's selfishly because I want parents to enjoy their kids. And I want parents to live that healthy, whole, connected life. And I also want them to be able to set their kids up for success, that I'm trying to help parents raise kids they want to hang out with one day
Mhm.
and can have a long-term loving relationship, despite, whatever happens, geographical distance, but you can create emotional closeness. So it's kind of, that's what I'm passionate about. I coach teens in real life in Southern California. We're working on bringing that program to, the digital world, but right now helping parents navigate life with teens. And then, I love uh, hanging out with you guys and following you and sharing your content with my clients and getting them to follow you guys, because there's a whole nother layer of navigating co-parenting, uh, especially when it's combative.
Mhm.
Really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that we connected because I think that we really overlap and I think we both have the same goal of trying to stop intergenerational trauma. Like
Mm-hmm. 100%.
stop here, let's deal with it. So, because you work so much with adolescents, why is it important for everyone who has kids who either are teenagers or will become or even have been? Why is it so important to understand adolescent development?
Oh man. Well, one, because we're confused on what's going on, and most of the time, parents take everything personally. Their kids talking back or not talking at all, or their
Oh,
kids isolating in
always.
their room. Yeah, and so the disrespect, the disconnection, the distance, the confusion on, wait a second, like what happened to the cute, cuddly, talkative, fun kid that I used to have? Like, where did they go? And if you don't have an understanding of adolescent development, like what they're going through,
Mhm.
You think it's my fault. I'm a bad parent. I'm doing something wrong. We're already hard enough on ourselves as it is. There's a really neat assessment I use, and that tool, as we looked at 2 million people over the last 30 years, is that self-esteem is to the on this particular tool. We call it net minus 14, trending on minus 15, which just means we are critically low on the esteem of ourselves and our self-confidence. So it's
Mhm.
hard to keep strong boundaries. It's hard to have high standards. It's hard not to feel. And then most of the time, we're really hard on ourselves. And in my experience, could be one or the other. But when you get divorced, you are accused of being the bad guy or the bad parent, or it was your fault, or you did something wrong, or we assume we did something wrong. And then your kids, unfortunately, start to live in some patterns, and they might say things that are really triggering and really hurtful. So when you need to stop a pattern of communication or behavior in your teen, you can't, because you're frozen by this pain of what's been going on for so long, you know?
Mhm.
And so it's really important to to rebuild that confidence and get moving in the right direction again.
Yeah. And what you're describing, I think I told you, Mike, Chris and I are
Mhm.
finishing a book that's due, the manuscript's due in like a week and a half, so I'm a little freaked out about it. But it's about how to handle when your ex is trying to turn the kids against you.
Mhm.
And what you've described with kids coming back, attacking, basically parroting things from the ex, it really, really deeply affects people in a negative way. Their self-esteem is affected. I mean, and the whole
Yeah,
identity thing is like, I must be a terrible parent. I'm a terrible person. What if my kid's believing this? My kid is believing this. Oh my gosh, what do I do?
yeah,
It's really, really scary. So it's good to
yeah,
know. I think that there is partially part of it is responsible is related to where they're at as teenagers
yeah,
are hard, like I said,
yeah.
period.
And it
But
was hard for us when we were there. So I think what I try to help parents understand is that, that 0 to 10, you're nurturing. And that's fairly simple, right? You're
Mhm.
making lunches, helping them get dressed, teach them to tie their shoes. But when you get to the teen years, it's about trust development. And trust is about confidence in yourself, and it's about accountability, and it's standards, boundaries, and expectations, which are not synonymous. Those are three different things in relationship. So the best image I could come up with is like running a marathon.
Mhm.
And so you're trying to get your kid across this particular finish line, which is entry into their young adult years. But you don't get to do it from the sidelines.
Mhm.
You are running the race with them. So if you've ever seen a marathon or been to a marathon, there's these guys and girls who are remarkable athletes. They run with a sign that has like the mile. Hey, I'm not a marathoner. I don't
Mhm.
want to pretend to be one, but I've seen them
Mhm.
enough. Um, and anyway, they run with this sign and it says like 6:52 or 6:25 or whatever. And that's like, that if you run with that person, you're going to finish the marathon at a certain time because that's the mile pace you want to be at.
Mhm.
And that person they're training just as hard. They're getting dehydrated. Their hips and knees, feet, everything's going to hurt just as much. They have to cross the finish line too, but they don't get a medal because it's not
Mhm.
their race. But they're encouraging you, they're cheering you on, they're telling you into height, whatever. They are there so you win. But they
Mhm.
experience all the same pain. They're running just as hard. And as parents, the first thing I encourage any parent to do is just put some pads on, like get a helmet, protect, because it's live training. And so you've helped your kids get to this point. Well, now you're at the starting line of, their adult years. And so you got to run with them. But
Mhm.
remember, it's not your
Yeah.
race. You're not running for the medal. That's where we get really stuck is I want to be seen as a good parent. I'm looking for my gold medal that I got my kid across the team. That's not how God designed this 6 to 10 year epic of all of our lives, but
Mhm.
we have to run alongside them. So for me, I call my method of parenting is the pace method of parenting. So you got to learn how to get present in moments with your kids. And that's seeing them, identifying their emotions, and asking really good questions and turning off your work life, turning off everything else. You have to learn how to get present in the moment with your kids. And then to the question you asked about Allison development, you got to appreciate and understand where they're at in their development. They're learning how to make decisions. Up to this point, they only know three emotions: happy, angry, sad. But we
Mhm.
know there's a complex set of secondary and tertiary emotions that when you can identify that, we call it like name it to tame
Mhm.
it. So emotional regulation is just helping kids see what their emotions are, walking with them, and appreciating the last thing to develop. And I don't know why God did it this way. But the last thing to develop is our consequential thinking mind, that prefrontal cortex, where
Your
we
judgment.
evaluate. Yep. Like it's the last thing. And it's not that kids always consider the consequences, the negative consequences, but they overestimate the value of doing the thing they want to do. They just don't think that, the negative consequence is that big of a deal. They know it's
Mhm.
there. They're not dumb. They thought about it. They just don't think it's that big of a deal because they haven't experienced life long enough.
Yeah.
And that hasn't connected yet. So you appreciating is just understanding that, and understanding them is growing it. Okay, what's going on and how do I shape that? How do I teach them good judgment? How do I cultivate empathy and imagination? How do I create trust and help them grow in their identity? Um, and then the C in PACE is connect strategically, whether that's 5 minutes or 15 or 20 minutes, or teaching parents how to become a non-anxious, non-judgmental presence where their kids will talk their ear off
Mhm.
for 2 hours, or you might get 5 minutes. But learning how
Mhm.
to ask the right question at the right time or follow up in the right way is really important because connection is the key to communication,
Yep.
which is what I hear the most from parents. My kid just doesn't want to talk to me. Or when they do talk to me, it's hurtful and disrespectful.
Mhm.
So we can fix that.
Ah,
And the last one is,
pause right there. We can fix that.
Mhm.
People in our situation feel like no, it's going to stay this way forever. I'm doomed. Nothing can be done. But
You're not.
it's about
You can fix it.
educate. Yes, you can fix it. It doesn't have to stay this way. It's just that you need to get the right support from people who really
100%.
understand it. Yeah.
I had a mom. This will trip you out. I had a mom, sweetheart, has this teenage son, it's like 14. She got a call from her husband who said, basically he left the state they were in and he was driving back across the country and said, yeah, we're getting a divorce. I'm going back home to my parents. Just one afternoon after work.
Oh boy.
And that's how, right? And he's been gone. So then he didn't want to call his son, so she had to break the news to him, and that was a few years ago. And so it just set him into a terrible spiral, coping with a number of things. Anyway, not only was he not talking to her, but he began to call her by her first name. He began to
Mm-hmm.
say, "You don't need to parent me." He began to say all kinds of just terrible things and lost connection. And I think it was within three 3 weeks. I feel like it was within 3 to 4 weeks of working with her, supporting her, carrying, that I have a part of my process is I put parents into a community of parents who can understand them because oftentimes you feel like you're
Oh,
alone and nobody understands and you want to say things, but then people are going to judge you. It's like we like it to say whatever you need to say because we
mhm.
understand what you're going through. I remember we were on a Q&A call that I host for parents, and her celebration was that her son talked to her for an hour and a half. They were in
Wow,
the
that's
car.
huge.
She was doing the work. She had got her confidence back. She released herself from a lot of things and just was open. It was an experience. She didn't even know necessarily that she said there wasn't a formula of words. It's just she
Mhm.
was present and open, and he felt that. And she was like, I couldn't get out of the car. I didn't want to get out of the car. He just kept talking. He's like, he said things I never even had heard him say. And I said, that's it right there. You're figuring it out, and not you.
Yeah.
Nobody, you probably don't have time to talk to your teen every day for 2 hours. You don't need to. That's not the strength of a relationship, but
Mhm.
openness, meaningful conversation, confidence in a parent. So that's the stuff that fires me up. And they're still dealing with the painful reality of a divorce,
Mhm.
but sees mom again.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's so many cool stories about what he decided to give up so that they could grow closer together. I mean, just really, really neat stuff. But yes, you're 100% right. Everybody needs to hear this. Your community and friends need to hear this. You can fix it.
Yeah.
You can transform. You
Yeah.
can change.
So,
You just have
so
to
we had got,
choose.
yeah,
You know,
I know.
yeah. Anyway.
And you have to be ready. You have to be ready to change
Hmm.
and not to just be uh, pessimistic into thinking this is the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing too is, um, somebody had asked about like what kind of questions to ask.
Yeah, I was just
It's really
about
about
to give that to you.
a
Mhm.
style of questions. So often there's whys and whats and hows. If I tried never to say why anymore. I work really hard at never saying why. And it's mostly because why it's a valid question, but it for whatever reason, it sounds like it demands an excuse. So if I said like, hey, so why do you have that background
Mhm.
on your Instagram? You're kind of like, oh, well, because I like
Like, what are you saying?
this.
Something's
Okay.
wrong? Like, what
Yeah,
are you? You're. It sounds like you're saying something's wrong.
that's right. That's right. But if I said, hey, what is it about that background that you really enjoy? That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
And now,
Totally different
hopefully,
tone.
hopefully the experience is I'm really curious
Hmm.
and I want to connect and I want to know more about you. It's the same. I could say with the right intention, hey, why do you like that background? But for
Hmm.
whatever reason, that word why, it can be a trigger. So our teens
Yeah.
feel the same thing. So, what I try to, some of the process of the feeling would be if you can learn how to recognize what's going on in your kids. A really simple question coming home from the other parent's house, so if they were there for 3 days, you might say like something like, "Hey, so what was really fun and exciting about being at your dad's?
Right. But
What did
not what did you
you
do at that? Not
not what did you do?
because
No.
that's
Hey, why
grilling.
did?"
That could be perceived as grilling and that you're mining for information, especially with our clients with the
Mhm.
exes and that whole dynamic and loyalty
Yep.
conflict is to not ask what did you do, but what's something
Hmm.
fun.
Yep. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's lead with curiosity, be genuinely curious, and I think every why question can be turned into what, and then even just during the course of the day or coming home from school, hey, what went on today that was difficult?
I love
I try
that.
to
Turn
lead with the
your
positive
whys into
stuff.
what.
Hmm. Yeah, just and
Right.
and even with and honestly, if you want to tune down your ex-spouse when you have to make a phone call or write an email or you have to meet about something, if you can come at them with what's instead of whys, you'll automatically you won't trigger the defense mechanism
Exactly.
because
We teach our clients the same thing in strategic
yeah.
communication. Do not ask or answer why because it doesn't matter. Let's
Hmm.
deal with whatever it is, what it is, not
Yeah,
why.
yeah, and lead with empathy. And I
Hmm.
think this is where it gets really hard. I know we've talked about this before. A lot of my clients who have to be single parents and in combative ex relationships, it's right. The word narcissist gets thrown around. The
Hmm.
narcissistic ex-spouse, or they're a narcissist. And I'm not a psychotherapist or psychologist. I think there are clinical narcissists out there. But what I've found in some of the work I've done through the field of axiology, which is about the study of values and measuring people's different components of people's lives, is oftentimes what we think is narcissism is actually dramatically lower, critically low self-esteem and high,
Hmm.
high, high levels of inner criticism. And so people get into a position where they can't accept another piece of blame, and they can't continue to feel I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not smart enough. And so there's this like shield that gets put on, and it's presented as arrogance, it's manipulative, it's controlling, because they need a reason to believe they're not the problem,
Hmm.
even though their whole life they've been told by parents or coaches, or if they've been fired a number of times, if they
Yes.
switched jobs, it's really hard to believe that there's something wrong with me. So I got to find a story, right? Somebody said this years ago, like every story has to have a villain. And
Hmm.
so oftentimes in this situation, they make the other spouse out to be the villain. And the way to disarm that style of what we might call narcissism is to lead with curiosity. And not that you need to be additionally caring or break any boundaries, but if you're going with the mindset of, man, this person's really broken and hurting too, their life's not going the way they want it, it will change the tone a little bit if you want to get collaborative. If you
Hmm.
need collaboration, lead with care. And you
Yeah.
have to be I mean, you kind of got to judge because there are some really difficult, painful situations out there.
And this is not something that you can figure out yourself. So I know, Mike, when you're saying lead
No,
with care,
no.
people they really have to learn it from someone who teaches it because
Hmm.
it's not intuitive.
Well, why you guys are such a huge value to this community because, like for example, I don't know why I'm starting to get into golf, and I know how to swing a golf club. Uh, I don't know why the golf ball goes left or right as often as it does.
Hmm.
But what I do know is at my local golf course, they're offering some lessons from a PGA pro golfer. And this would be true if it was tennis. This would be true if it was any athletic ability. I can't see what I'm doing. I
Right.
think I know I'm doing it right, but I can't see what I'm doing. And a great coach doesn't tell me how to hit the ball like they hit the ball. But a great coach will watch what I'm doing. They're present in my life. We do this week in, week out. They're observant, they're hearing, they're asking great questions, and they're saying, essentially, try this. What worked? How did that work? Let's let's try this and track it. But you can't do that on your own. You can't do that in ice. You have to have a coach that knows the game or knows relationships or knows divorce like you guys do, and can walk with somebody, listen, celebrate, course correct. But oftentimes, what I hear most often is, well, how much time might this take, or what's it going to cost? And I'm like, dude, this why does that matter? This is your this is your relationship with your teen. What's more important? Like, what's
Hmm.
more important than this? You Most time when I talk to clients or I meet parents that I have the pleasure to coach, they've been doing this for like 3 years. They're
Hmm.
like, how much more time? One, do we have because we're going to graduate high school? That's pressure. Or two,
Yeah.
you just don't deserve to live with this level of frustration or pain or anguish. So let's fix it.
Yeah.
Let's fix it.
And if they
Yeah,
say I've given up, say you didn't because you're talking to me now. So you haven't given
100%.
up. You
There
haven't.
is a version of you that has not given up.
Right.
Let's let's get that version of you back to the top.
Yep. Yep. So
100%.
important. And what you were talking about with coaches, I'm thinking one of the things that we always say that I hear you do the same is let me teach you how to help yourself. I'm not going to do it
Awesome.
for you.
Yes.
I'm going to teach
Hmm.
you and you're going to learn how to do it.
Yep.
And then you're going to go fly.
Yeah.
You're going
And
to figure it out.
let me remind you who you are,
Yes.
because I've gotten to know
Exactly.
you. Everybody else is saying something else. Well, let me tell you who I see in you, and let's talk about who you actually are. Powerful, wonderful, bright, creative. I mean, it blows my mind. I talk to clients who I admire professionally, right? Because admiration is about what you do, appreciation is about who you are. I have a lot of admiration for the professional things that a lot of my clients have done. They don't think they're good at anything.
Isn't it
They
crazy?
can't see themselves. And a part of it is because human beings are meaning making machines. We attach meaning to everything. And so we oftentimes we just need to be reminded about really how wonderful we are and how good we actually are. And we sometimes we're believing the wrong story. So
Oh,
you're 100% right. Let me teach you how to do what you want, but also let me remind you about how wonderful you actually are. And let's build from there.
yeah. What you're saying is so familiar because, and it just even came up at this past Sundays. I told you we have this weekly legal abuse support group,
Yeah.
and all the time, because all of our clients, men and women, have been in these domestic violence situations. So abusive relationships, unhealthy relationships, and they are beating themselves up for being fooled by someone like that and
Hmm.
saying, I feel so stupid for being in something. And so what we do a lot is say, the reason that that person targeted you is not because you were foolish and stupid. It's the opposite. It's because you were so amazing, creative, responsible, resourceful,
Hmm.
um, empathic, wonderful. That's why a parasite might have attached to you because you make their star shine brighter. So instead of
Hmm.
feeling terrible, think about how you must have been such a wonderful person for someone like that to choose someone like you.
Yeah.
And it really, you can see I remember the woman that we were talking to in the group who was saying this, her face just completely changed. It was like, oh yeah. And then we remind her too that the reason Chris and I love what we do is because we get to work with the best people. All of our
Hmm.
clients are the most amazing ones because all of them were targets. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to bring that up here too.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And anybody that raises their hand, get help, or whether it's as simple as following you or actually pursuing the resources you offer and the relationship you're willing to give to people, like that's resilience. You might
Mhm.
not feel like you have it, but if you're here, you do, and it's resourcefulness. And you might not feel very resourceful, like you can find a way to win, but if you're here, you are.
Right.
So just continue to empower that. And those are the kinds of things in what I want to help and encourage your community and people who are finding life again by following you guys and being with you guys and being encouraged by you guys is, you know, if you're, well, one, you deserve to live a happy, whole, connected life. I do think that's the way God designed it. So 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 grow and mirroring and reflecting and learning. And so, you've got this really cool opportunity and responsibility to teach your kids how to live and thrive and choose really well. So just to make some adjustments because it might not have been modeled for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at all of the things I want to talk to you about, Mike, and I know we're going to run out of time. So let's talk about three core components of a healthy relationship. Because, like you said, we
Yeah.
want our kids, we want it to stop here. We want our kids to move forward and not feel like, oh no, they're going to end up like my abusive ex. And there's ways to make sure that they have healthy relationships. So tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking too. The core concept is this: anything that's growing or is alive or living or dynamic has to be managed. That's everything from your weight and your health to the grass in your front lawn. Uh, Anything living has to be managed, and anything that needs to be managed can and should be measured. And I'll use that term loosely, measured, because it's not about control, but it's just about understanding what's missing, so that you can add certain things so that it can kind of come back to life. And so,
Mm-hmm.
for example, if we talk about, in the world of fire science, the fire triangle is this concept that all fires, if you like a bonfire or a fireplace or whatever, you need a fuel source, you need a heat source, and you need uh, an oxidant like oxygen. So we all know
Mm-hmm.
this. If you take oxygen away from a fire, it goes out. Okay. So if we want our relationships to like be vibrant and alive and on fire, if we can follow that analogy, then there's three things that have to be present. Not necessarily equal, in experience or equal in energy, but they got to be present in appropriate ways. So that if you just draw a triangle on your piece of paper, you can draw this out, and it's really simple. So on one side of that triangle, you're going to want to write, let's say, consideration. So
Mm-hmm.
the three components are appreciation, consideration, and communication. Consideration is when we don't think about it often enough, but it's usually one of the first things we recognize. Man, that person's inconsiderate.
Mm-hmm.
Or wow, that person was really considerate. But the word considerate is two words. It's con, which means with, and then cider is an ancient word that means understanding or wisdom. And so to be considerate means I'm somebody that lives with understanding and in relationship of the other person. So a considerate person is somebody that like I want to understand you. I want to know you. I want to understand what's
Mm-hmm.
meaningful to you. And so in relationships, when somebody's considerate, it means that they're growing in their understanding of who you are now, and then they're also growing with the understanding of who you're becoming.
Mm-hmm.
So consideration is essential to healthy relationships. Appreciation is I call it oxygen for the soul. So appreciation is valuing somebody for who they are. Admiration is valuing people for what they do. This is where parents get really confused with their teen. Hey, great, I'm getting an A, 3 GPA. Nice. You got an award. Great job. We offer admiration to our kids, but that doesn't improve our relationships because admiration it's performance based. It's good to admire people, but that's not what fills our cup. What fills our cup is appreciation. It's about who you are as a person. So you could say like, hey, what I really appreciate about you is how thoughtful you are. What I really appreciate is how kind you are. I really appreciate the way that you um, helped me out around the house this weekend, and we got everything really cleaned up. Appreciation is different. So, but people will say, I never felt appreciated in my relationship. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you probably didn't because we don't pay attention to it. Hey, thanks for cleaning the house. Thanks for getting the groceries. Those
Mm-hmm.
are performance driven things. Hey, thanks for
Yeah.
making sure that we had great meals this week. I know that was a lot of work and you had a really busy week and you killed it. I just appreciate the kind of mom you are in our family, the kind of wife you are. So appreciation it's different. We need to know that nuance. And then the last one is communication. And when you get into the teenage years, it always becomes logistics. When's the track meet? When do you pick you up from school? Whose house are you
Mm-hmm.
going to? Where are you going to be? What are you doing? I mean, we have monitoring devices. Why are you there right now? Why aren't you on your way home yet? It's like, how was your day at school? Fine. So
Yeah.
it's take out the trash, do the dishes. I'm tired. Like it's just logistics, but communication, the word common is in communication. And so it's a reciprocal conversation. But you have to connect first. And to connect, you got to be present. To connect, you need to see and understand what's going on in the other person, which builds into things like empathy, and honesty, and being present. So if you feel like, man, relationships it just kind of sucks right now. It's not, something's wrong. I don't know what it is. The first thing to do is grab a piece of paper and start asking yourself some questions. Do I feel appreciated by this person? What are they,
Mhm.
what are they doing or not doing that makes me feel appreciated or unappreciated? Do I feel like this person considers my needs? Um, how have they been considerate? In what ways would I say they're inconsiderate? How how is it that they're communicating to me? Like when I think about the experience of communication, is it aggressive? Is it controlling? Is it joyful or happy? That's one thing to understand how you're relating to the person. But I would even really encourage anybody, before you try to lay this template on another person and say why they're not doing healthy, why they're the problem in the relationship, is to look at yourself. And especially if you have teenagers or preteens, college age kids, adult children you're not connecting with, and even a spouse, partner, anybody, is to look at it and say, in what ways how am I showing appreciation to this person, and what is it I appreciate about them? How am I doing on communication and connection? Am I asking the right questions? Am I present? Do I know what their even interests are that we could have some common conversation around? Uh, and then consider it is, how have I been considerate towards their needs lately? Can you even write down what's been relevant, how much they've been talking, know what's going on, and what have you done? So right now, kids are going to be testing. We're getting ready towards the end of the year. And it's a really pressured moment for a lot of teenagers. From parents, from teachers, from peers, college pressure. It is a lot of pressure to go through an AP test because it's kind of hit or miss. It costs money, so parents have to pay to take these tests, and kids attach their worth to it. Well, they're going to be studying. It's a tough time. So what could you do as a mom or dad to see that your teen right now, even though the end of the year is coming and summer is so exciting, finals and AP exams are, and track finals and baseball playoffs and all this stuff it's a lot.
Mhm.
So what can you do to show consideration towards your teen? Is it um, take them out to a great dinner? Is it a small gift? Is it creating a little more peace? Is it taking a little more time off so you can spend a little more time making sure, maybe not putting chores on them, but maybe you taking care of it right now while they're, and just saying, hey, I want you to have good peace of mind. I see this is really critical. Hey, I see that this is a really important thing for you. Um, I hear what you're saying. It's a lot of pressure. If you're a Christian family or faith-based, hey, just want you to know I'm praying for you. Um, what can I do for you? Do you need anything? This is just a short time to show consideration and appreciation. Say, I know you're working really hard right now. What can I do to help you? So
I
that
love that.
the dynamics of the relation, and it can be measured. And so if you feel like it's not working, just take some time and sit down and slow down, which is the hardest thing for us to do. Uh, but look at it through those three lenses: consideration, appreciation, and communication. How are you doing? How's it showing up? And then when you're ready to have a conversation with your teen or partner or spouse, to calmly help them
Mhm.
become aware. Here's what I think I'm missing. And I'm not telling you you're doing a bad job. I just think I'm missing this. What can we do together to grow our appreciation? Because they're probably feeling the same way too. But that would be kind of
Mhm.
the simple dynamic of those three things. I think is can really change the way you perceive and grow a relationship. At least gives you some structure to grow on.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Mike, this is amazing. And as you're talking, I'm thinking there are things this book is due. Somebody asked what the title was. It's How to Handle When Your Ex is Turning the Kids Against You. And
Mm,
we have a couple of chapters on how to connect with your kids short term and long term. And
yes.
the things you said, I'm like, I'm going to turn these into reflection questions and definitely, note you in here because it's so helpful.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that you took the time today and shared all of this amazing information. We have to finish this conversation. This conversation, I
Yeah.
feel like we just
Would love
got
to.
started. Yes, but
Yeah.
thank you so much. Before you go, can you tell people how to find you?
Yeah, I would love that. I'd love to serve and help out if I can. So I'm on the social medias at Mike the Parent Coach. And then if you just go to presentsolutionforparents.com, my email is mike@presentsolutionforparents.com. Um, and there's a lot of great stuff. There's some freebies. There's an opportunity to connect. I like to give parents at least we call it like a strategy session or a free training on how to avoid mistakes and then kind of parenting. And that's all at presentsolutionforparents.com. Would love to help out any way I can. Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This is only the first live we're going to do
Yeah, I hope
together. I know we're going
so.
to do more.
I hope so. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate you
Thanks.
inviting me and
So are
allowing me to
you. Oh,
encourage
so
your
helpful.
community. So,
Yes.
oh, you guys are great.
Thanks.
Okay,
All right. So we will definitely be in touch and talk soon. And thank you so much again, Mike.
my pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.